구세주 예수 그리스도의 삶이 의미 있게 다가올 것입니다. 자신을 개방하게 되고 또 최종적으로는 그리스도께 자신을 봉헌할 수 있게 되는 것입니다. 그래서 이냐시오 성인은 모든 기도에 앞서서 이 성찰을 특별히 강조하였습니다. 그렇다면 오늘 복음에서 재산 상속을 받는 형이나 동생, 그리고 자신을 위해 재산 축적을 하려 했던 부자는 성찰을 잘하는 사람입니까? 복음 말씀을 잠깐 상기시켜 드리겠습니다. 어떤 부유한 사람이 땅에서 많은 소출을 거두었다. 그래서 그는 속으로 내가 수확한 것을 모아둘 데가 없으니 어떻게 하나 하고 생각하였다. 그러다가 말하였다. 이렇게 해야지. 곡간들을 헐어내고 더 큰 것들을 지어 거기에다 내 모든 곡식과 재물을 모아두어야겠다. 그리고 나 자신에게 말해야지. 자, 내가 여러 해 동안 쓸 많은 재산을 쌓아두었으니 쉬면서 먹고 마시며 즐겨라. 그러나 하느님께서는 그에게 말씀하셨다. 어리석은 자야, 오늘 밤에 내 목숨을 되찾아갈 것이다. 어쩐지 부자의 성찰에서는 하느님도 이웃도 모두 빠져 있습니다. 그래서 끝내는 어리석은 자 취급을 받게 됩니다. 그러나 하느님께서는 그에게 말씀하셨다. 어리석은 자야, 오늘 밤에 내 목숨을 되찾아갈 것이다. 어쩐지 부자의 성찰에서는 하느님도 이웃도 모두 빠져 있습니다. 그래서 끝내는 어리석은 자 취급을 받게 됩니다. 저는 현재 이주 노동자 센터에서 봉사하고 있습니다. 주로 이주 노동자들의 눈과 귀, 입이 되고 때로는 그들의 발이 되어 줌으로써 이분들의 삶을 공유하고 있습니다. 아까 제가 성찰이 중요하다고 말씀을 드렸는데 최근에 제가 이주 노동자 산모를 데리고 경북 쪽에 있는 지역을 방문한 적이 있는데 농촌에 삿갓 쓴 사람들이 많이 앉아 있었습니다. 다 베트남 여성들이었습니다. 그래서 저는 이 성찰적 질문을 다시 한번 해보려고 합니다. 왜 우리들이 아니고 저 베트남 여인들이 우리 대신 수고의 땀을 흘리고 있는가? 내가 아니고 누군가 고통을 받고 있다면 그들의 고통에 마음을 열어야 되겠습니다. 사람은 자기 성찰을 통해서만 하느님과 이웃 앞에서 본인의 참모습을 거울처럼 돌아볼 수 있으며 겸손해질 수 있습니다. 봉사도 좋고 나눔도 좋고 그것을 하는 이유는 바로 그것입니다. 자기 자신을 둘러싼 주변을 돌아봄으로써 사회와 자연, 이 모든 곳에서 고통 속에서 신음하는 사람들과 피조물들을 바라보면서 하느님과 가까워지는 것입니다. 우리가 좀 더 겸손하게 하느님과 일치하며 이웃들과 일치할 수 있도록 우리 마음을 모아 기도해야겠습니다.
Hi, I'm Alana. Welcome to another video. In today's video, we're doing a Get Ready With Me for Church. So, in today's video, I would like to recommend my favorite non-fiction book of all time. I actually found this on Friday in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house, and I reread it immediately. I reread it in one day. So this is a book by this psychiatrist, Dr. M. Scott Peck, wherein he talks about psychology of evil. And so he references like cases he's witnessed in his clinical experience, and he basically illustrates like how we can begin to try to understand evil and like evil people and work towards developing a psychology of evil. So, in the first chapter, he writes about this man, and this man comes to see him because he has these obsessive thoughts about death. Like, he starts having these thoughts that are just like really intrusive thoughts saying, you will die at 55. And then the thoughts come like, you will die at 45. And then he starts getting these thoughts that say like he's driving over a bridge, and the thoughts say, the next time you drive over this bridge will be the last time and you will die. And he literally starts like getting up at midnight after his wife has gone to bed to go and drive over the bridge just to like prove to himself that the thoughts are not true and that he won't die if he goes over the bridge. And so like every night he sneaks out after his wife has gone to bed just to drive over the bridge, just to like make sure that the thoughts are not real and that he won't die the next time he drives over the bridge. And so he becomes like obsessed with this. And then eventually he comes into the doctor's one day and he's like, guess what? The obsessive thoughts are gone. And the doctor's like, oh, that's great. Like, how? And he doesn't really understand. But he's like, okay, well, an improvement's good, I guess. And so then the next time he comes in, he says, okay, I've got a confession to make, doc. The reason why these obsessive thoughts have stopped is because I made a deal with the devil. And he says, what do you mean? And he said, I made a pact with the devil that if I have these obsessive thoughts again, then the devil has to ensure that if I have the thought, if you drive over that bridge again, the next time you drive over that bridge, you will die, then the devil has to make sure that I will die the next time I drive over the bridge, because therefore I have no incentive to actually go and drive over the bridge again, because I know that I will die if I do. And he also says that he staked his son's life on this. So he says like, I needed, some kind of collateral. So I told the devil, and if you will make this deal with me and make sure that I don't need to drive over the bridge again, because if I have these thoughts, then I'll know that they are true. And so I don't need to go and try and drive over the bridge to make sure they're not true. And he says, so I've made a pact with the devil that also my son will die too. And so the psychiatrist says, like, that was a really bad idea. And he says, why? I don't even believe in the devil. And the psychiatrist kind of explains to him that, like, it doesn't matter if you believe in the devil or not. If you have made a pact with the devil, then that is real, whether you believe in the devil or not. And so it's binding. And so he opens with this story of this man, and he explains that, like, this man was not yet evil, but he had the potential to become evil. And the reason why he was not evil was because he still had like what he called the guilties. So he still felt like, oh, I feel really guilty about making this pact with the devil. And so that's why the psychiatrist opens with this story, illustrating that this man had not yet crossed over to evil because he still had like a conscience telling him this was wrong. So anyway, this man ended up revoking the pact with the devil. And the psychiatrist explains that the reason why he had these obsessive thoughts about death was because this man was refusing to face his own death. He was refusing to take responsibility for like any aspects of his own life. He just wanted to run away from himself. And so the psychiatrist says that that is like one of the key features of evil people, is that they refuse to take any kind of responsibility, and their primary motivation is just like maintaining their image as good, respectable people, but like at any cost. So that's why he calls them people of the light. And then in the second chapter, he illustrates the second story. So these people, he explains, were evil. So these people, this couple, brought their son in to see the psychiatrist because he had been like failing academically in school. Like he'd always been a good student, and then he started failing academically, and he also stole a car and crashed it. And so his parents come in, they explain to the doctor that this boy's brother had committed suicide a year beforehand, and so they say like this might have something to do with the reason why he's acting out. And so Dr. Peck speaks to these parents, and he speaks to the boy, and the boy comes in and he's like a typical angsty 15-year-old, like he's trying to get a reaction out of him, and he just seems like sullen and depressed. And so he's asking him about things like, do you have any interests? And then he gets to the topic of Christmas, and he's like, you excited for Christmas? Like, what do you want? Do you have any Christmas presents that you would like? And the boy comes to tell him that for last Christmas, what my parents gave me was a gun. And the psychiatrist is like, okay, that's weird. Like, what kind of gun? And he says it was a 22 caliber pistol. And then the psychiatrist is like, wasn't that the same kind of gun that your brother killed himself with? And then the boy says, no, it was not the same kind of gun. It was the same gun. And he explains that his parents gave him his brother's suicide weapon for Christmas. And so this couple, the psychiatrist illustrates that like he says they have crossed over into evil because like their primary motivation was just like maintaining their image as good, respectable people. And so they took their son to see a psychiatrist because, so that we could say, oh, we took him to see a psychiatrist because it was the right thing to do. But they didn't actually like care for his well-being. And they were kind of like basically telling him that he should kill himself too. And then the final chapter talks about group evil, like the psychology of group evil, with reference to the genocide of My Lai, which was a genocide that occurred in Vietnam, I believe, many years ago. So these American soldiers had been trained to go and like kill the Viet Cong soldiers, but when they got there, when they arrived, there were only like unarmed people, unarmed women and children, and just like clearly citizens who were not soldiers. But the American soldiers ended up killing like hundreds of them anyway, killing hundreds of unarmed men and women and children. And so he talks about like how did the genocide of My Lai happen, and he explains that one of the aspects of it is specialization. So like these soldiers who went to My Lai, they were trained like to specialize in killing Viet Cong soldiers. So that's like, he said that specialization is one of those things where it kind of like clouds your perspective, because then you don't take into account anything else. You're just going there with the aim to just kill Viet Cong soldiers. And so he said that was one of the things that caused that instance of group evil. And he said that the other thing is that if he were to ask the people involved in My Lai, like, how did this happen? Say he went to the weapons department, then he said, you know, how did this genocide happen? They would say, oh, we're just the weapons department. You need to speak to the policy department. They're in charge of this kind of thing. And then if he went and spoke to the policy department, they would say, oh, we are just the policy department. You need to go and speak to the weapons department. And like, everyone would be abdicating responsibility to someone else. And so he says that in My Lai, most of the people who were involved in committing this genocide likely would not have felt like guilty conscience, because they would not have believed that they had done anything wrong, until eventually, obviously, some people were charged with war crimes. I think in total 25 people were charged in war crimes, and there were about 50 people in total who allegedly were involved in the genocide. Yeah, so he said that that is part of the psychology of group evil, is the abdication of responsibility that allows people to act just on orders without, you know, thinking for themselves or considering, like, is this right or not? And so that is my absolute favorite nonfiction book of all time, People of the Lie, A Hope for Healing Human Evil, by Dr. M. Scott Peck.
Michelle not coming? Come on. Michelle not coming? The fourth witness and Michelle not. What are the things about that? One more time, time.
After more than 6 decades, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting will be shutting down operations. The announcement comes less than 2 weeks after President Trump signed a bill cutting $1.1 billion in federal funding. Officials say they will help local stations come up with plans to deal with smaller budgets, but some stations may not be able to stay afloat. Funds for the corporation will end September 30th, which is when most staff members are expected to be let go.
He would have thought. I mean, I was watching television channel. Self-reflection. What the girl was talking about self-reflection, and what is self-reflection? Is looking at past things, and there's nothing that I should be aware of that's affected me. There's nothing that I should be aware of that's affected me. example, if you have actually killed someone, you think you would be worried about them or not, but I don't find it. I think you would remember it every day for the rest of your life. Yeah, that's true. 그러니까 내가 누구를 죽였다면 그것을 계속 지니고 있어. 내가 누구를 죽였다. 계속 기억에 생생하게 남아있는 게 사실 범죄지. 근데 그런 과학적, 그런 과학적이고 그런 자기 성찰은 없다. 그리고 고백하고 자기 성찰을 뭔
질문이 바뀌었어요. 차지가 되겠느냐? 자신을 위해서는 재화를 모으면서 하느님 앞에서는 부유하지 못한 사람이 바로 이러하다. 주님의 말씀입니다.
그리스도님 찬미합니다.
수도 생활을 하다 보면 퇴행하는 사람들이 생겨요. 제 주변에 형제로 불렀던 형 동생들이 안타깝게도 중간에 이제 낙오를 하는 거죠.